Eli was a boy who never felt like he belonged. He lived in a small town where everyone seemed busy with their own lives, their own groups, their own laughter. When Eli walked to school, he kept his head low. He had no friends to walk with, no one waiting for him. Teachers said he was quiet, too quiet for his age. The other kids sometimes laughed at him, not because he was bad, but because he was different. Most evenings, when the town grew dark, Eli would climb a small hill behind his house. From there, he could see the stars. They were his only friends, shining silently above him. He would lie on the cold grass, staring upward, imagining that somewhere out there someone might be looking back at him. Sometimes he whispered to the stars, asking questions. Why am I alone? Do you hear me? Is anyone out there? Of course, there was never an answer. Or so he thought. One night, everything changed. The sky was unusually quiet. No wind, no sound of cars, not even dogs barking in the distance. Eli lay on the hill, his hands under his head, watching the endless dark. Suddenly, he saw a light. At first, he thought it was just a shooting star. But this light did not move like a star. It burned brighter, grew larger, and cut across the sky like fire tearing through paper. The light had color, blue and orange mixed together, glowing so strong that Eli's heart began to race. Then he heard it, a deep rumble that shook the ground. The light was not falling far away. It was coming down near the forest at the edge of town. He sat up quickly, his breath caught in his throat. Fear told him to run home. Curiosity told him to go closer. And Eli, who had never felt truly alive before, listened to curiosity. He ran down the hill, his shoes hitting the dirt path, his chest pounding. The air smelled strange, like smoke and electricity. As he reached the forest, he saw broken branches, leaves glowing faintly from sparks in the air. Something had crashed here. Something not from this world. Eli stepped carefully, his hands shaking. The deeper he went, the stronger the smell became. Then he found it. A circle of trees had been burned away. In the center was a crater, and inside the crater was not a rock, not a meteor, but something smooth and silver. It looked alive, like it was breathing. The silver shell cracked open, and Eli froze. From inside, a figure moved. At first, he thought it was a child. Small, thin, fragile. But as the figure pulled itself forward, he realized this was not human. The skin was pale blue, glowing faintly in the darkness. The eyes were large, silver like mirrors. And most shocking of all, the figure had no legs. She, because her face looked soft, almost like a girl, dragged herself slowly out of the shell. Her arms were thin, but strong enough to pull her body forward. She looked hurt, trembling as if every breath cost her great effort. Eli wanted to step back, but something inside him refused. He felt her pain. She was lost, just like him. The girl raised her head and their eyes met. Eli's heart jumped. It was as if her eyes reached into his mind, searching, questioning. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Eli whispered, his voice shaking, "You're not from Earth." "Are you?" The girl tilted her head. Her lips moved, but the sound was strange, broken, like static from a radio. Still, Eli felt he understood. She was asking for help. He looked around nervously. The night was no longer quiet. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the faint hum of helicopters. He remembered the stories on the news. Strange lights in the sky. Governments warning people to report anything unusual. If soldiers found her, they would take her away. Maybe even kill her. Eli had no friends, no family that cared much, nothing important to lose. But this girl, this alien, looked at him as if he was the only person who could save her. For the first time in his life, Eli felt needed. He stepped closer, his fear slowly changing into something else. Maybe courage, maybe hope. He reached out a hand, and after a moment, the alien girl raised hers. Her fingers were cold, trembling. But when they touched his skin, Eli felt a spark. Not just of energy, but of connection. The sound of helicopters grew louder. The forest lights flickered from search beams in the distance. Eli knew he had only one choice. He could run back home, pretend he never saw this. Or he could do the one thing no one expected from him. He bent down and whispered, "I'll help you." The alien girl's silver eyes glowed brighter for a second, as if she understood. And together they disappeared into the shadows of the forest, just as the searchlights swept across the crash site. The night was dark, and the forest was alive with strange sounds. Eli held the alien girl's cold hand as they moved away from the crash site. His heart was racing, his mind spinning with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why did she have no legs? But the helicopters were still circling, their searchlights cutting through the trees. There was no time to think. Eli pulled her forward, whispering, "This way, follow me." The alien girl struggled. She had no legs to walk on. Her body dragged across the dirt, her arms trembling with effort. She made soft, painful sounds, almost like gasps of static. Eli stopped, realizing she could not move fast enough. He looked at her fragile form and then made a decision that surprised even him. He crouched down and said quietly, "Climb onto me." For a moment, she only blinked, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the moon. Then she placed her thin arms around his shoulders. Eli lifted her carefully. She was light, far lighter than any human should be, almost as if her body was hollow. With her arms wrapped weakly around his neck, Eli carried her deeper into the forest, away from the searching beams. By the time the helicopters left, Eli was exhausted. His back ached, his legs burned, but he didn't stop. He finally reached an old cabin near the edge of the woods. It had been empty for years, its wooden boards broken, its roof leaning. No one ever came here. That made it the perfect place. He pushed the creaky door open and stepped inside. The air was filled with dust, but at least it was shelter. He gently laid the girl down on an old blanket in the corner. She shivered slightly, her glowing skin flickering like a dying light. Eli sat down in front of her, catching his breath. The silence between them was heavy. He wanted to ask her so many things, but how? Could she even understand him? The girl stared at him for a long time. Then slowly she raised one hand and touched her temple. Eli frowned in confusion. A moment later he felt something inside his head. It wasn't painful, but it was strange, like a whisper brushing against his thoughts. A broken voice echoed inside his mind. Lie. Eli's eyes widened. He realized she was telling him her name. Lyra, he repeated softly. The alien girl gave a small nod. Then another broken image filled his head. Not words, but pictures. A vast black sky full of stars. A burning planet. Ships flying like arrows of light, explosions, and then silence. Eli pulled back, shaking. "That's where you came from?" he whispered. Lyra's eyes dimmed and she gave the smallest of nods. He looked at her again. This strange girl with no legs, lying weakly in the dust of an old cabin. She wasn't just lost. She was running from something far greater than he could understand. The hours passed slowly. Eli brought her water from a rusty bucket outside. She drank it carefully, her hands shaking. He found some bread in his bag, old but still edible, and gave it to her. She tasted it, then gave him a strange look, half curious, half amused. "You don't know what this is, do you?" Eli asked with a nervous laugh. She tilted her head like a child learning something new. For a moment the fear around them faded. For the first time in his life, Eli wasn't alone. But the peace did not last. Deep in the forest, a faint mechanical sound began to hum. Eli froze. It wasn't a helicopter this time. The sound was sharper, colder, like something scanning the air. He peeked out through the broken window. Far away, red lights glowed between the trees, moving slowly but surely. Lyra's body tensed. She grabbed Eli's wrist suddenly. Her eyes flashed bright, and another picture appeared in his mind. Strange machines, tall and sharp, hunting through shadows. And then she sent him an image that chilled him to the bone. Himself lying still on the ground, lifeless. Eli pulled back, breathing hard. "They're looking for you," he whispered. Lyra gave no answer, but her eyes said enough. That night, Eli could barely sleep. He sat near the broken door, holding a piece of wood like a weapon, even though he knew it wouldn't stop whatever was out there. Every sound of the forest made his heart race. He kept glancing back at Lyra. She was lying quietly, her hands folded near her chest, her silver eyes half closed. But even in her weakness, she did not look helpless. She looked different, powerful in a way Eli could not explain. At some point, Lyra stirred. She raised her hand again, touching Eli's forehead lightly. He felt another whisper in his mind. Danger. Not human, soon. Eli swallowed hard. The machines weren't soldiers. They weren't from Earth. Whatever was hunting her had followed her across the stars. And now they were here, on Earth, searching the forests where a lonely human boy and an alien girl were hiding. He clenched his jaw. For once in his life, Eli wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about her. She needed him, and that thought gave him strength he never knew he had. As the night deepened, Eli whispered into the silence, "Don't worry, Lyra. I'll keep you safe." Her silver eyes opened slightly. For the first time, she gave him a weak but genuine smile, and outside, the red lights in the forest grew brighter, moving closer. The cabin creaked as the wind pushed against its broken walls. The night was long, but Eli did not sleep. He sat near the door, clutching a piece of wood in his hands as if it could protect him from the strange red lights in the forest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the burning images Lyra had placed in his mind. Planets exploding, ships falling, and her silent cry for help. When dawn finally came, the red lights were gone. Only silence remained, and Eli's chest loosened with relief. He turned back to see Lyra resting. Her skin still glowed faintly, but it looked weaker, like the fading light of a candle. Eli knew she could not survive without help. He stood and stretched his sore arms. "I'll be back," he whispered, though he doubted she understood. He left the cabin and made his way to town. The morning streets were busy. People rushed with their bags. Children shouted on their way to school. No one noticed Eli. He liked it that way. He slipped into the store and bought bread, fruit, and a small bottle of water with the little money he had saved. On the way back, he saw posters on the walls, warnings about strange lights in the sky and a number to call if anyone saw something unusual. Eli pulled his hood tighter. He couldn't tell anyone. If they found Lyra, they would take her away. She wasn't a monster. She was just lost. When he returned to the cabin, Lyra's eyes opened slowly. Eli placed the food in front of her. "Here," he said softly. "You need this." She sat up weakly, her hands trembling as she touched the bread. She sniffed it, studied it, then bit off a small piece. Her silver eyes widened in surprise. Eli laughed. "Yeah, it's not so bad." He opened the bottle of water and handed it to her. She drank carefully, then leaned back with a soft sigh. For the first time, Eli saw her relax. Days passed like this. Eli brought food, water, and blankets he stole from home. Lyra grew stronger, though she still could not walk. She began to understand his words, slowly repeating them. Bread, water, Eli. Every time she said his name, something warm spread in his chest. For years, no one had spoken his name with kindness. Now here was someone, something, not even human, giving his name meaning again. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Eli sat beside her on the dusty floor. "Why did you come here?" he asked quietly. Lyra closed her eyes, and once again images flowed into his mind. A shining world with tall towers. A people who glowed like her. Then fire, weapons, destruction. She showed him ships chasing her, burning her home, breaking her people apart. Then an escape. A desperate flight through the stars. Eli trembled as the vision ended. "You're running," he whispered. Lyra nodded weakly. "Run. From war." Her voice was broken, but her meaning was clear. She looked at him then, her silver eyes glowing softly. "Human, strong," she said slowly, pointing at his chest. "You help." Eli's heart skipped. No one had ever called him strong. No one had ever looked at him the way she did, as if he mattered. But outside, the world was not still. Strange humming sounds returned at night. Red lights flashed in the distance, always searching, always closer. Sometimes Eli heard soldiers in the town speaking about scanners and drones. He knew they were looking for Lyra. One night, as Eli tried to sleep on the floor, a beam of light cut across the cabin wall. His eyes flew open. He crawled to the window and peeked outside. A soldier's flashlight swept across the trees. Eli's heart thundered. He turned quickly to Lyra. "We have to stay quiet," he whispered. She nodded, her eyes wide. The flashlight moved closer. Boots crunched on leaves. Eli held his breath, pressing his back against the wall. Lyra reached for his hand, her grip cold but firm. The soldier stopped near the cabin. Eli could hear the man's radio crackling. "Sector 6 clear." No signs yet. The light moved away. The sound of boots faded. Only then did Eli release his breath. He turned to Lyra, whispering, "That was close." She touched her temple again, sending another image into his mind. This time it was not war, not fire. It was him, Eli, standing tall, facing darkness, unafraid. She showed him an image of himself as something greater than he believed. Eli shook his head. "That's not me. I'm nobody." But Lyra's voice came soft and broken. "Not nobody. Friend." Those words cut deeper than any insult he had heard in school, deeper than all the silence at home. Friend. She called him friend. For a long time, Eli just sat there, staring at her. The lonely boy who had no one now had something worth protecting. But as the night grew darker, the humming of machines returned, louder than before. The red lights flickered through the trees again, searching. Eli knew this secret friendship could not stay hidden forever. The forest was no longer safe. Eli had known it since the first night he saw the red lights. But now the truth was impossible to ignore. Every evening, strange machines circled above the trees. They were not like human helicopters. They moved too smoothly, too silently, like predators in the sky. At night, their red beams cut across the woods, scanning the ground. Eli and Lyra stayed hidden inside the broken cabin, but the fear never left them. Each sound outside, the snap of a twig, the cry of an owl, felt like the start of the end. Lyra had grown stronger in the past days, but she was still fragile. She could not walk. She could only drag herself slowly, or hover slightly when her energy returned. Eli tried to make her laugh with simple words, tried to keep her calm, but he could see the worry in her silver eyes. One night, as the cabin walls shivered from a low hum above, Eli whispered, "What are they? The machines?" Lyra touched her temple, and once again images filled his mind. He saw a world in flames. He saw the hunters, machines made of black metal shaped like insects with sharp legs and glowing red eyes. They moved in swarms, tracking energy, destroying anything that stood in their way. Lyra's weak voice echoed in his mind. "Hunters not stop. Never stop," Eli shivered. They weren't just searching. They were hunting her. And if they found her, they would kill him too. The next day, Eli gathered courage and went into town again. The streets buzzed with fear. People whispered about the government searching the skies, about strange objects on the radar. Eli overheard two men in uniforms talking. "Scanners picked something up in the forest," one said. "Not human. Orders are to track and capture." Eli's blood ran cold. He hurried back to the cabin, his arms full of food and blankets. When he arrived, Lyra was waiting by the window, her eyes fixed on the sky. She turned to him and whispered only one word: "Close." That night the hunters came. The sound began as a low vibration in the earth, a steady thrum that grew stronger. Eli peeked out through the cracks in the wood. Between the trees he saw red lights weaving back and forth. They were closer than ever. "Stay quiet," he mouthed to Lyra. She nodded, pressing her hands together as if trying to contain her glowing energy. But the hunters were clever. They did not search blindly. They moved in patterns, sweeping the forest like wolves working together. And then Eli saw it. The faint trail of light Lyra left when her body glowed. He realized with horror that they could track her energy. The cabin shook as one of the machines landed outside. Its legs clattered against the ground, its red eyes glowing like fire. Eli's chest tightened. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to move," he whispered. But where could they go? The forest was filled with hunters. They had only seconds. Eli pulled Lyra toward the back door. He pushed it open slowly, trying not to make a sound. But the moment they stepped outside, a red beam swept across the trees and landed on them. The hunter screeched, its metallic wings unfolding. Eli's heart exploded with fear. He dragged Lyra behind him, shouting, "Run!" even though he knew she could not. The machine charged, its sharp legs slicing through branches. Eli grabbed a fallen branch from the ground and swung it wildly. The stick cracked uselessly against the metal shell. The hunter didn't even slow down. Lyra raised her hand, her silver eyes flashing. A burst of pale light shot from her palm, hitting the machine's eye. The hunter stumbled back, screeching like steel grinding against steel. Smoke hissed from its damaged sensor. "Come on!" Eli yelled, pulling her into the trees. They stumbled through the darkness, the sound of the machine crawling after them. They reached a clearing. The moonlight poured over the grass, and Eli's chest heaved with exhaustion. Lyra's glow flickered weakly. She had used too much energy. She leaned against him, trembling. The hunter burst into the clearing, its red eyes blazing again. This time 2 more dropped from the sky, their wings slicing the air. Eli's knees almost gave out. "We can't fight them all," he whispered. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes calm despite her weakness. She pressed her hand against his chest, and he felt another image burn into his mind. A choice, run and live for a moment longer or fight and risk everything. Eli clenched his fists. All his life he had been nobody, invisible. But now someone needed him. If he ran, Lyra would die. If he fought, maybe they both would. But for the first time, he wanted to fight. He grabbed a heavy rock from the ground. His voice was shaking but firm. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." The hunters screeched, their red eyes glowing brighter. Lyra whispered one last broken word, her voice filled with both fear and hope. "Human!" And then the clearing exploded with light as the hunters attacked. The clearing was filled with red light. 3 hunters stood around Eli and Lyra, their sharp legs digging into the ground, their metallic wings opening like knives. The machines hissed, their glowing eyes locked on the alien girl. Eli's throat was dry, but his grip on the rock tightened. He had no weapon, no training, no plan. But he had made a choice. He would not run. Not this time. The first hunter lunged forward, its legs stabbing down like spears. Eli threw the rock with all his strength. The rock smashed against the hunter's eye, cracking the red glow for only a moment. The machine screeched and staggered back, but it wasn't destroyed. The second hunter charged from the side. Eli grabbed Lyra and rolled across the grass, the metal legs stabbing into the ground where they had just been. His heart pounded, his body shaking with fear. But adrenaline pushed him on. "Get up," he shouted, pulling Lyra to her arms. She tried to raise her hand, but her glow was faint. She had used too much energy already. The third hunter rose into the air, its wings buzzing with a sharp metallic hum. Eli looked around wildly, searching for anything he could use. His eyes landed on the broken trees at the edge of the clearing. Splinters, sharp branches. An idea sparked in his mind. He dragged Lyra behind a fallen log. "Stay down," he whispered. Then he crawled out, his eyes fixed on the hunters. He grabbed a long branch and lifted it like a spear. His arms trembled, but he held it tight. The first hunter charged again, its eyes glowing like fire. Eli waited until it was almost on him, then shoved the branch into the ground at an angle. The machine stepped forward and impaled itself on the branch. The sharp wood pierced its metallic chest. Sparks flew as the hunter screeched, its movements jerking wildly. It stumbled, then collapsed to the ground, smoke rising from its body. Eli stared in shock. He had done it. He had taken one down. The second hunter shrieked, its wings opening wide. It lunged faster than before. Eli rolled aside, grabbing another branch. This time he swung it across the hunter's legs. The machine stumbled, falling to one side. Lyra raised her hand weakly, and a burst of silver light shot out. It struck the hunter's eye, shattering the red glow completely. The machine froze, then fell silent. Only one remained. The last hunter hovered above, watching them. It seemed smarter than the others, waiting, calculating. Eli stood in front of Lyra, holding the broken branch like a sword. His chest heaved, his arms shook, but his eyes were steady. "Come on," he muttered under his breath. "Come for me," the hunter shrieked and dove. Its wings cut the air, its legs stabbing forward. Eli braced himself. Then at the last second, he leapt to the side. The hunter crashed into the ground, its sharp legs sinking into the dirt. Eli didn't hesitate. He grabbed a large stone and smashed it against the back of its head again and again, sparks flying with each strike. The machine screeched, thrashing wildly. Lyra raised her hand one last time, her eyes glowing bright. A beam of silver light burst out, hitting the hunter's core. The machine let out a final metallic scream before collapsing in a heap of smoking parts. Silence filled the clearing. Eli fell to his knees, gasping for air. His hands were bleeding from the wood and stone, his arms shaking with exhaustion. But he was alive. They were both alive. Lyra dragged herself closer to him. Her silver eyes glowed softly as she looked at him. "Human, strong," she whispered. Eli laughed weakly, though his voice was hoarse. "Strong? I was terrified," she shook her head slowly. "Fear, not weakness, you. Fight." Her words sank deep into Eli's heart. For so long he had believed he was nothing, a quiet boy, invisible, forgotten. But tonight he had stood against machines from the stars, and he had won. For the first time in his life, Eli believed he was more than just nobody. But the victory did not last long. The hunters' broken bodies lay scattered across the clearing, their red lights fading. Yet Eli knew they had sent a signal. Someone somewhere would know they were destroyed. More would come. Stronger ones. Lyra seemed to sense it too. She touched his hand, and once again a picture burned into his mind. A vast fleet of ships moving through space, thousands of hunters ready to descend. Earth was not ready. Humans were not ready. Eli's breath shook. "They'll come for us," he whispered. Lyra nodded. "Signal. Sent." He looked up at the night sky, at the stars that once felt like distant friends. Now they felt like threats. But then he looked back at her, the alien girl with no legs, the one who had called him friend, the one who had made him fight when he never thought he could. No matter what comes, he said softly, we'll face it together. Lyra's silver eyes glowed brighter. She leaned her head against his shoulder, her weak smile filled with both trust and sorrow. And above them, the night sky flickered with faint lights, as if more hunters were already on their way. The broken hunters lay scattered across the clearing, their bodies smoking in the night air. Eli stood among them, his chest still rising and falling in heavy breaths. His hands were raw, his arms ached, but he was alive. And Lyra, though weak, was alive too. For a few moments there was silence, broken only by the crackle of sparks from the machines. Then Lyra touched his arm. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, not safe. More, come. Eli swallowed hard. He already knew. The hunters weren't finished. Destroying 3 of them was only the beginning. He helped her back toward the cabin. She was so light in his arms it almost felt like carrying smoke. But her presence was heavy with meaning. Something about her mattered, something bigger than Eli could understand. When they returned to the cabin, Eli laid her gently on the blanket. He sat across from her, staring at the strange glow in her chest that flickered with each breath. I don't get it, he said quietly. Why are they after you? Why do they want you so badly? Lyra closed her eyes. For a long moment she was still. Then she raised her hand and touched her temple. A flood of images filled Eli's mind. He saw Lyra's people, tall, glowing beings with silver eyes like hers. But none of them had legs. They floated above the ground, their lower bodies glowing with pure energy. Eli realized with shock they had given up their flesh. Their bodies were not like human bodies. They were living vessels of power. The images shifted. He saw a great hall shining with crystal towers. Lyra stood among her people, but soldiers in black armor stormed in. Her people fell one by one, their light stolen, their energy harvested. Lyra fled, carrying something inside her chest. The vision ended. Eli staggered back, gasping. You're not just running, he whispered. You're carrying something. Lyra nodded weakly. Her voice was broken but clear enough. Core, knowledge, future. Eli frowned, confused. Knowledge? What do you mean? She tapped her chest where the faint glow pulsed brighter for a moment. Inside, memory of stars, power, if hunters take. End of all. Eli's skin prickled. She wasn't just an alien girl. She was a key, holding something that could change the fate of entire worlds. That was why the hunters never stopped chasing her. Eli stared at her, his mind spinning. And you trusted me? A human boy who can't even fight properly? Lyra's silver eyes softened. Human, heart-strong. Not like others, you. Different. The words hit Eli deeper than any wound. Different. All his life being different made him an outcast. But to her it made him important. He looked at her trembling body, at the way her glow flickered like a candle about to burn out. He wanted to ask her more, but the sound of engines rumbled in the distance. Not alien this time. Human. Through the cracked window Eli saw them. Soldiers, trucks, flashlights sweeping the forest. They found us, he whispered. Lyra struggled to sit up, panic in her eyes. Humans, not safe. Want core too. Eli's stomach turned. What do you mean? They'll protect you, right? Lyra shook her head. She touched his forehead again, showing him another vision. Soldiers in black uniforms surrounding her, their leader pointing at her chest. Hands reaching out to tear the glowing core from her body. Not protection, capture. Eli's hands curled into fists. The world felt like it was spinning. Not only hunters from the stars wanted her, but humans too. No one could be trusted. No one except him. Boots crunched outside. Voices shouted, "Search the cabin!" Eli's heart pounded. He turned to Lyra, whispering quickly, "Stay quiet. Don't move." The cabin door burst open. Flashlights blinded his eyes. Soldiers in dark gear filled the room. One of them grabbed Eli by the shoulder. "What are you doing here, kid?" Eli stammered, I was just hiding. I heard noises." But their lights fell on Lyra. She lay against the blanket, her silver eyes glowing faintly. The soldiers froze, their voices sharp with excitement. "There! That's the target!" Lyra's eyes widened in terror. She clutched her chest, the glow inside her flickering wildly. Eli stepped in front of her without thinking, spreading his arms wide. "Don't touch her," he shouted. The soldiers laughed coldly. One raised his gun. "Move aside, boy. You don't know what you're protecting." Eli's voice shook, but he didn't move. "I know enough. She's not your enemy. You just want what's inside her." The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. Lyra reached out, her voice breaking in his mind. "Eli, run," but Eli stood firm. His whole body was trembling, but his eyes burned with something new. Courage. For a moment, time felt frozen. Soldiers with weapons ready. An alien girl too weak to fight and a human boy standing between them. Then a sharp sound cut through the night. A screech metallic and terrifying. Red lights swept across the trees. The hunters were back. Soldiers turned their guns toward the forest as the machines descended, their wings slicing the air. The ground shook with the weight of their landing. Sparks lit the darkness. In the chaos, Eli grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to go," he shouted. She looked at him, her silver eyes filled with both fear and trust. "Together," she whispered. And as the soldiers and hunters clashed outside, Eli pulled her into the shadows, ready to face whatever came next. The night exploded into chaos. Outside the cabin, red beams slashed through the trees as alien hunters descended. Their metallic screeches filled the forest, drowning out the soldiers' orders. Gunfire cracked, bullets sparking off the hunters' black shells. The machines moved like shadows, too fast, too sharp. Soldiers screamed as the hunters cut through their lines. Inside the cabin, Eli held Lyra's cold hand, his heart hammering against his ribs. He could feel her fear, see it glowing in her silver eyes. But beneath the fear there was trust. Trust in him. "Eli," she whispered, her voice weak but steady. "You must." "Choose." Eli swallowed hard. He knew what she meant. The soldiers wanted to take her, to rip the core from her chest. The hunters wanted to kill her and erase the knowledge she carried. Both sides were enemies. Both sides would never let her live, and that left him. The cabin walls shook as an explosion ripped through the forest. Splinters rained down. Eli pulled Lyra close, shielding her with his body. Dust filled the air, making his lungs burn. He could hear soldiers shouting, "Hold the line!" He could hear hunters shrieking as their metal legs stabbed into the ground. But through it all, Lyra's faint voice whispered again. "Choice." Now, Eli closed his eyes for a second. All his life, choices had been made for him. He was told where to sit in class, where to live, how to behave. He was invisible, forgotten, no one important, but now the choice was his. He opened his eyes, his jaw tight. "I won't let them take you." Lyra's silver eyes shimmered. A weak smile touched her lips. Human, brave. He lifted her in his arms. She was so light, almost weightless, but the responsibility felt heavier than the world itself. He pushed through the back of the cabin as the front collapsed under gunfire. A hunter spotted them. It screeched and charged, its glowing eyes burning like fire. Eli ran, his legs pumping through the dirt, his breath tearing at his throat. He zigzagged between trees, the machine crashing behind him. The forest lit up as soldiers fired rockets into the sky. A hunter exploded, raining sparks, but more descended, their wings slicing through the smoke. The ground shook with every step. Eli stumbled into a clearing, his body aching. He fell to his knees, clutching Lyra close. "I can't keep running," he gasped. Lyra touched his chest with trembling fingers. Another image filled his mind. Not war, not death, but a future. Humans standing among the stars, their ships rising higher than any alien fleet, their courage unmatched. A future where they were no longer weak, no longer forgotten. "You," she whispered. "First step." Eli's heart pounded. She wasn't just asking him to protect her. She was asking him to protect her secret, her core, her knowledge, the key to that future. And to do that, he would have to defy both the hunters and his own kind. Branches snapped behind him. Soldiers burst into the clearing, weapons raised. The lead soldier barked, "Hand her over, boy." Now Eli stood shaking but firm. "No," the soldier's eyes narrowed. "She's not your friend. She's not even human. She's a weapon." Eli shook his head. "She's not a weapon. She's alive, and she trusts me more than she'll ever trust you." The soldier raised his gun. Last chance. Before Eli could answer, the forest split open with another metallic scream. A swarm of hunters descended, their red eyes burning through the smoke. The soldiers spun around, firing wildly. Eli held Lyra tighter. He whispered into her ear, "I'll get you out. I promise." She leaned her forehead against his, whispering, "Together." In the chaos, Eli saw a chance. A narrow path through the trees, half hidden by smoke and fire. Without thinking, he ran. Bullets whizzed past him. Red beams slashed the ground, but he didn't stop. He ran with every ounce of strength left in his body. A hunter spotted them and screeched, diving down. Eli tripped, falling hard. Pain shot through his arm, but he rolled onto his back, holding Lyra above him. The hunter's sharp leg stabbed down, and Lyra raised her hand. For a moment, her entire body glowed brighter than ever before. A burst of silver energy exploded from her chest, striking the hunter square in its core. The machine convulsed, its red light shattering before it crashed lifelessly to the ground. Eli stared at her in shock. How did you... Lyra's glow dimmed again, her strength nearly gone. Core gift. Not forever, Eli understood. Using her power drained her life. If she used too much, she would die. No, he whispered fiercely. You're not dying here. Not like this. They stumbled deeper into the forest, away from the chaos. The sounds of battle grew distant, replaced by the soft whisper of the wind. Eli finally stopped, collapsing against a tree, his chest heaving. Lyra lay weakly in his arms, her glow faint. She looked up at him, her silver eyes filled with something he couldn't name. Hope, trust, sadness. Eli, she whispered. Today you choose. Save me or give me. If you save, war comes. If you give, humans safe, but... Her voice trailed off. Eli clenched his jaw. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about who he wanted to be. He looked at the stars above, the same stars he had once spoken to in loneliness. Now they felt different. Now they felt like they were listening. I won't give you to them, he said firmly. If war comes, then we'll face it. But you're not alone anymore. Lyra's eyes softened, a single tear sliding down her pale cheek. She whispered one last word. Friend. The forest grew quiet again, but high above the night sky flickered. New lights appeared, brighter and larger than the hunters. Not falling meteors this time. Not human machines, ships, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Eli's breath caught. This was not the end. It was only the beginning, and for the first time in his life, Eli felt ready.